Members of the public are now paying tribute to late Justice Sandra Day O'Connor as she lies in repose in the Supreme Court's Grand Hall. Justice O'Connor was the first woman to ever serve as a Supreme Court justice, paving the way for generations to come after her. She died earlier this month at age 93. Earlier, Justice Sonia Sotomayor talked about her historic impact.
I will always remember the day Sandra was nominated to become the first female Supreme Court justice. Sitting in my district attorney's office in New York, I felt the gravity of her nomination. At a time when most states had no female justices on their high courts, and large firms of 300 to 500 lawyers touted having just one female partner, I knew that Sandra would open the door for women in the law and serve as an inspiration to girls across the country. Later on, she would often say that it was good to be the first, but don't want to be the last.
And senior national correspondent Terry Moran and ABC News Supreme Court contributor Kate Shaw join me now for more. Kate, what did Sandra Day O'Connor being named to the court mean not only for the future justices who followed in her footsteps, including Sotomayor, but women in the legal field in general?
Well, it was a watershed moment. I don't think there's any question about that. And it's pretty interesting because Ronald Reagan actually said he wanted to put the first woman on the Supreme Court. If you think back to more recent history, President Biden actually took a lot of criticism for saying that he wanted to put the first Black woman on the Supreme Court. And then, of course, he did nominate and see confirmed Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. But there's actually a long history of presidents specifically seeking out demographic features in their nominees. He wanted to put a woman on the court, and he found her. She didn't come from, a federal appeals court perch. She wasn't even a lawyer practicing in the federal courts. She spent most of her career in the rough and tumble world of Arizona politics, in the state Senate, rising to be the majority leader in the state Senate, and then on a state intermediate appeals court. So it was in many ways an unlikely path to the highest court in the land, but she more than rose to the occasion once she arrived, became a formidable presence on the court, but one who always took a fairly modest view of the role of the court in a democracy. She thought, the justices should be minimalist. They should think about the consequences of their rulings, and they should not act as though they're the most important player in our constitutional scheme. Mostly the political branches should run the show, and the court should just make sure that the system of democracy was functioning properly.
Terry, there are so many facets of her legacy now being unpacked. What stuck out to you most from what we heard in that ceremony today?
Well, it was great to hear from Justice Sotomayor about Sandra Day O'Connor, the justice, off the court, not just on the court, and the way that she brought the court together. There's a saying that every new justice changes the whole court because it's such a small group of people that the social dynamic has changed. And Sandra Day O'Connor changed it, as Justice Sotomayor pointed out. The court in the past had been a place of coldness, sometimes fierce enmity, with justices kind of backstabbing each other. In fact, it may be drifting in that way now again. But she came on with a kind of politician's touch. As Kate just mentioned, she was a practiced politician. She brought them together. She insisted that they lunch together all the time. Sometimes she'd kind of buttonhole them. She was tough-minded, but also fun. She was known as really one of the main socialites in Washington, she and her husband John, for a long time. And I think that, that contribution to the court is substantive because she was able to occupy the center, which she did so long, in a way that could bring along some of her colleagues. And I think at base, the most important contribution she brought to the court was a pragmatism, a deeply humane pragmatism. Incremental change. She didn't have a grand theory of everything to change the world with one stroke of her pen. What she wanted to do was judge the case before her properly, truly respecting the participants in the case and the law that she was sworn to apply.
Terry, the funeral is taking place tomorrow at the National Cathedral. What can we expect to see, and particularly to hear, from both the president and the Chief Justice tomorrow?
Well, the Chief Justice will speak in his formal capacity and his personal capacity. You could see on the Justice's face at that ceremony at the Capitol the deep pain that they have in losing such a treasured colleague. And he will speak for her role as a patriotic justice of the United States and what she did for the country. President Biden, I think, wants to take off on who she was in the court, that vital center that she occupied, that sense that she had that sides could come together in cases and reach pragmatic decisions that would not, as I say, revolutionize and overturn existing arrangements, but would give the Democratic branches and the people of the country more of an opportunity to consider the issue, those burning issues that come before the court, and continue to work on them. I think President Biden will pick up on that in this divided time and also pick up on her commitment to civic education. She believed passionately that if we know about our country, its history, its institutions, its flaws, its nobility, all of it together, the country will work better. And I think President Biden will talk about that as well.
Kate, how do you think Justice O'Connor's impact on the court is still being felt today?
Well, I think there's a lot of reflecting right now on her and her legacy. And one thing that's really come to mind for me is her open-mindedness during her nearly 25 years on the bench. You actually saw her views evolve on questions like abortion, affirmative action, gay rights. These are issues that she actually took a pretty conservative position on in the 1980s when she was first on the court. But her views changed as she heard arguments and worked through questions with colleagues. And she wrote, the opinion upholding the core right to abortion, first announced in Roe. That was the Casey opinion. She sided with affirmative action in 2003 in the Grutter case. Again, really her views evolved, but open-mindedness, I think, was really central to her. She didn't come in with fully baked views on every issue. And I think that's something that a lot of people think the court could use a dose of, open-mindedness and humility. It's not clear you see a ton of that on display with this court, in which people are pretty fixed in their ideological and partisan corners, and there's not a lot of kind of moderation or wiggle room. I think the Chief Justice probably wishes there was more of that on the court, because he really is kind of the center and the most moderate justice on the court in many ways right now. So I wonder if that's something that will be alluded to, or at least in the air tomorrow, and just as the reflections continue on her life and legacy.
All right, we will be watching and listening. Terry Moran, Kate Shaw, thank you both.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.